Hello and welcome back to Module 7 of the Agile Operations Fundamentals course. And in this module, we're going to look at exploring the options and strategizing the way ahead. So the things you'd have to do during this phase is set a BHAG or a big, hairy, audacious goal, review your retrospectives and root cause analysis, value stream mapping, the to-be situation. We'll talk about removing bottlenecks. We'll talk about how to eliminate waste. And finally, we'll talk about making a decision on what areas you need to improve. Now, what you normally start off with is the as-is value stream map, which we talked about in the previous module, that you would work together with the team to develop in the workshop. This section is still a part of the workshop. It's just the next hour or the next few hours. It normally could be done in the same day or done as a separate section. The big, hairy, audacious goal is a concept put forward by Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great. The big, hairy, audacious goal is a target that the team sets for itself that helps them stretch the limits. It's not something that goes into, let's say, your budget or your targets. It's something that is set as a stretch target to help the team think outside the box in order to get there. Now, the advantage of using a BHAG is that the minute you set one, it is just like magic. Teams come up with ideas to achieve the BHAG. And if you set a low BHAG, you will achieve a low BHAG. But if you set a high one, you normally do achieve the high one. The 6 golden metrics that you can set a BHAG for are the quality metric. Now, this will vary depending on what the operational process is producing, the customer satisfaction, throughput, unit cost, cycle time, and the team satisfaction. These 6 are the top 6 metrics that any operational team should measure. You wouldn't want to set a BHAG on all 6 of them, but just a couple of them will be fine, and sometimes even just one. Now, at any given moment in time, there's always one of these metrics that are, let's say, the key problem area, and setting a BHAG there can sometimes help. The first thing you do on your journey of exploring the options is to look back at your retrospective. Look at what worked well, what didn't work well, and what are the puzzles with the team. Now, you can use this model, or you can use this model for the retrospective. What makes us happy? What makes us sad? What are the ideas? What should I think? Another little good technique is the sailboat retrospective. So this is where you put up a poster that looks something like this, and you put sticky notes on what propels us forward. So that's the wind in your sails. What's holding us back? What are the anchors? And what are the big icebergs in our path? What are the risks ahead? So you could use this model as well. The key message is don't try to make a huge list of everything that you need to do. Start doing, stop doing, continue doing, and you have these long lists. What you want to do is vote on the top 3 things and the top 3 pain areas and focus on solving that. The thing with continuous improvement is that it should be small and effective. If you try to tackle too many things at the same time, the chances are you may not tackle anything at all. From a retrospective, it's very important to remember that the key points that the team finds are normally symptoms. It is not the root causes that show themselves up in retrospectives. So it is very important to do the root cause analysis and ask the 5 whys in order to get to the root cause. Now, when you're looking at the value stream map, you will find areas that just jump out at you, and you would look at it and identify areas of both waste and bottlenecks. So I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about them. So what is waste? Or muda, as the Japanese call it in the lean way of working. A good definition of waste is anything that a customer would not be willing to see on your invoice to them. So waste is just one of the 3 areas. That's called muda, but there's also mura and muri. Mura is unevenness that causes a loss of productivity, and muri is overburdening. So if you have work that is flowing through your pipeline that is very uneven, you could have a drop in productivity. You would be suboptimal. And the same thing if you overburden your people. Now we come to bottlenecks. What are bottlenecks? Bottlenecks are basically stoppages in the system or things that slow the flow. You'd have to find a way to expand these bottlenecks to help things flow through them. In this picture, for example, there is no point in optimizing step 1 or optimizing step 3 if step 2 is your bottleneck. So try and focus on your bottlenecks first. There are a few key causes for the bottlenecks. The first one is complexity of work. So you could get a bottleneck because the process is not clear, the process has a problem, there's input defects, or there's complex time-consuming steps. You could get a bottleneck because people lack the skills or the training or the commitment to actually do the work. And you could have a bottleneck because of insufficient resources, or the people could be overburdened. It is very important to remember that you will only deliver as fast as your bottleneck, and it's the bottlenecks that determine results. The best way to identify bottlenecks and waste is to look at the data. And Demings has always said, it is data that speaks. So it's very important to spend some time analyzing the real data in order to understand the root causes of the problems and to spot waste and bottlenecks. Don't just trust your gut, because sometimes your gut could be wrong. There are certain techniques for reducing waste and bottlenecks. The first one is increasing the efficiency of the bottleneck. So if you've got a bottleneck, you can try and increase its efficiency. And you do this by making sure that the input into the bottleneck is defect-free. You can improve the process by reducing wasteful steps. You can automate. You can upskill and train the team, or you can reschedule the work in a different order. You can increase the work time, increase the time that people spend doing the work in the bottleneck. You can minimize the downtime, so that's the time that they take for breaks and things like this. And you can, of course, add more resources. Please note that adding more resources is really the last option. The other thing you could do is decrease the input to the bottleneck, and this is also called managing the on-ramp, where you control the flow into the bottleneck. In the lean systems, there is a word called Kaizen. It means small continuous improvement, and it sits at the heart of operational process improvement. Agile has adopted a lot of these lean techniques. There are 5 key ways to improve a particular process. They call it the 5 S's. You can sort things in a different order to make sure they're well prioritized and they flow better. You can straighten or order the process around. You can standardize the work, and you can keep a very clean workplace, and you can make sure that all the rules and the processes are sustained and followed. So these 5 S's are simple ways to look at improving the process in itself in any particular given area. It's a form of small continuous improvement that any member in the team can practice. Now, once we have identified a certain area, let's say this 480 minutes is a lot of time wasted there, let's try and reduce this, or we want to look at this area. It's important that for each of these areas, you can have multiple solutions to solve it. You don't have to have only one solution. And you could brainstorm on how you could reduce the problem in that area. And then you could write down the pros and the cons for each of these solutions. Now, the outcome could be one or more solutions as your preferred option. And this is what you take into the testing phase. So we've seen how in the explore stage, you can set yourself a very clear BHAG, review the retrospective and the root cause, do the 2B value stream mapping to identify how you can remove bottlenecks and eliminate waste, and finally make a decision based on multiple options on what you're going to test in the next stage. And in the next phase, we're going to look at testing and implementing the solutions for process improvement. Remember, at the end of it all, do all this together with the team, use the wisdom of the crowd, and I wish you all the best in your exploration.